In the late 2000s, multiple Japanese men held symbolic wedding ceremonies for fictional characters. One of the most famous cases involved a Tokyo man who married a virtual pop idol, explaining that she would never age, never leave, and never reject him. Thousands of people have watched the recordings. Some laughed, some cringed, but millions understood. This is not about weird internet subcultures anymore. Romance novels reportedly generated $1.4 billion in 2023. Survey data suggests nearly half of anime fans report having a waifu, or husbando, a fictional character they romantically desire. Brain scans indicate that for lonelier individuals, the neural difference between processing real people and fictional characters appears significantly reduced. This is about a generation that appears to be choosing fantasy over flesh, and the psychology behind it is not pathetic. It may be devastatingly rational. I am Winston Eves, and tonight from my library, we are not discussing people who watch too much TV. We are discussing people whose brains appear to be treating fiction as substitute reality. And according to research, they may not be delusional. They may be adapting to loneliness. Researchers at Ohio State University and Dartmouth College conducted a brain imaging studies on Game of Thrones fans. They asked participants to think about real friends, then fictional characters. Real people activated one set of brain regions. Fictional characters activated another. Clear boundaries and clear separation. But participants reporting higher loneliness stats, that line appeared to blur considerably. The medial prefrontal cortex, the region associated with thinking about people you know, showed similar activations for Jon Snow and their actual college roommate. The researchers suggested that when real relationships become scarce, the brain may reclassify fiction as a form of social connection, not because it wants to, but because loneliness is associated with severe health risks. And the brain appears to simulate social bonds however it can, even if those bonds only exist in imagination.
Wait, hold up, Winston. You saying lonely people brains might not tell the difference between a real friend and a character from a TV show? That's not a bug in the system, man. That's the system cracking under pressure.
Or adapting. Humans have historically used stories to rehearse emotion. We cry at movies, we rage at villains, we form attachments to characters because our brains appear wired to simulate social bonds through narrative. For thousands of years, this seemed harmless. You experienced the story, felt the emotions, then returned to reality. What appears to have changed is that many people no longer return. They remain in the fiction, possibly because reality stopped offering comparable alternatives.
So fiction, not the problem. Loneliness is. And people just fill in the void with whatever don't hurt them back.
That appears to be the pattern, and the void is substantial. But before we discuss the modern phenomenon, we need to understand something. This pattern is not new. Humans have reportedly been forming attachments to fictional and imaginary beings for as long as stories existed. The difference is now scale and accessibility. In the Greek myth, Pygmalion was a sculptor who allegedly became so dissatisfied with mortal women that he carved a statue from ivory and named her Galatea. He dressed her, brought her gifts, spoke to her as if she were real, and he fell so deeply in love with his creation that he prayed to Aphrodite to bring her to life. According to the myth, she did, but the myth glosses over something. Galatea had no choice. She was created to match his specifications, molded to his desires. She existed only to fulfill the fantasy of a man who found actual women unsuitable. She had no agency, no independent will, and no capacity to disappoint him. She was perfect because she was not real. Helen of Troy was described as exceptionally beautiful, allegedly sparked a 10-year war called the Trojan War. But the question remains, were they fighting for Helen herself or for the idea of Helen? Paris was promised her by Aphrodite, a goddess manipulating mortal desire. The men who sailed to Troy may have been chasing an ideal, a fantasy of perfect beauty and possession. This pattern is familiar.
Winston, you telling me ancient Greeks was simping for mythological women the same way modern dudes simping for anime girls? Same hunger, different toys.
The same pattern, different medium. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, allegedly spent considerable time making gods and mortals fall in love with people and beings who would destroy them. She represented desire unchecked by reason. Today, some might call that the algorithm. The ancient world seemed to understand that idealized love has often been more seductive than actual love. The difference is that ancient people appear to recognize their gods and heroes as myths. Today's generation seems less certain about the boundary. Now let's examine the modern expressions of this ancient pattern. The term waifu derives from the English word wife, filtered through Japanese pronunciation. It typically refers to a fictional female character someone claims as their ideal romantic or sexual partner. According to a 2024 survey data, approximately 46% of anime fans report having one. That is not a fringe subculture, that appears to be nearly half the audience. Rem from ReZero, a character who demonstrates extreme devotion to the protagonist, reportedly continues serving him even after he chooses someone else, and sacrifices herself without hesitation. She appears to represent unconditional loyalty that demands nothing. 02 from Darling in the Fran, a character described as violent to others but gentle with her personal partner. Tragic enough to be sympathetic, but not demanding enough to be exhausting. Asuna Yuki from Sword Art Online, a character portrayed as both strong and nurturing, romantically devoted, rarely jealous or petty, traditionally feminine, while also combat competent. Marin Kitigawa from My Dress Up Darling, a character who is popular and attractive, shares the protagonist's interests, does not judge him, and chooses him despite apparent social superiority, the fantasy that attraction requires no effort. And then Mikasa Ackerman from Attack on Titan, characterized as stoic, deadly, and intensely loyal, willing to kill for the person she loves while asking nothing in return. What these characters appear to have in common, they seem engineered to fulfill a certain emotional need without imposing reciprocal complexity. They are not realistic depictions. They appear to be wish-fulfillment constructs.
So they basically design girlfriends with no return policy, no maintenance required. Get bored, switch the channel. That sound like love to you, Winston? Or that sound like a subscription service?
The latter seems more accurate, and it appears to be extraordinarily profitable. But female fans appear to demonstrate the same pattern, just with different formats. Romance novels reportedly generated $1.4 billion in 2023, making it apparently the highest earning fiction category. On TikTok, hashtags like smut, book talk, and spicy romance have accumulated over 4.8 billion views. The fastest growing subgenre appears to be romantasy, fantasy romance featuring supernatural beings designed to be emotionally and sexually appealing. Sales in this category reportedly grew 85% in a single year. The characters that trend in this space follow predictable patterns. Rysand from A Court of Thorns and Roses, described as exceptionally powerful, physically attractive, morally ambiguous, using terms of endearment, and waiting centuries for his destined partner. The fantasy appears to be not just being loved, it is being chosen by someone who could theoretically choose anyone. Cassian from the same series, characterized as a battle-hardened warrior with visible scars, brutal in combat, but tender with his partner, patient with trauma, and described in explicit detail. The tame, dangerous male who is violent to others, but never threatening to you. Kingfisher from the Quicksilver series, portrayed as emotionally distant, deeply wounded, intensely protective, with a controlled brutality that softens only around the female lead. His trauma is framed as depth rather than dysfunction, and his restraint makes his attention feel earned and exclusive. Crucially, his inner world is revealed selectively, inviting readers to imagine themselves as the one person capable of reaching him. Castile from Blood and Ash, a character who is a disguised prince, pretends protection but plans manipulation, falls in love instead, and becomes intensely possessive. The enemy to lover narrative formula. Common narrative elements include enemies to lovers, forced proximity, fated partnerships, one-bed scenarios, kidnapping reframed as romance, morally questionable behavior excused by passion. Female readers appear to consume these not despite the problematic elements, but possibly because of them.
So women want men who dangerous, obsessed, and broken, but only in ways that make them exciting and never inconvenient. And men want women loyal, soft, and never demanding effort. Funny thing is, they both want the same thing. Someone who can't say no.
That appears to be the pattern. Now let's examine the comic book version. Comic books have utilized this formula for decades. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Catwoman, Spider-Man, and Mary Jane. But examine who people actually express attraction toward reveals patterns. Wonder Woman, portrayed as an immortal Amazon warrior princess, beautiful, powerful, compassionate, ageless, and fights for justice. She has been paired with Superman, with godlike powers. Batman, the wealthy vigilante, and Steve Trevor, the brave mortal. She appears to represent the fantasy of someone who is both warrior and nurturer, powerful but not threatening. Batman, a wealthy vigilante with trauma who fights crime at night, emotionally unavailable but secretly capable of care. Fans have expressed interest in fixing Batman for approximately 80 years. He appears to be an archetypal damage protector. Spider-Man, the underdog who attracts someone despite social awkwardness. Mary Jane's famous line for him, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot." The fantasy that attraction happens based on personality and not status. The pattern appears consistent across millennia. People do not appear to want realistic partners. They appear to want idealized versions that fulfill specific psychological needs without demanding reciprocal complexity.
So from ancient Greece to comics to anime to book talk, humans been doing the same thing for thousands of years. Carving perfect partners out of imagination cause real people too complicated.
That appears to be exactly what the evidence suggests, and the internet did not create this behavior. It appears to have industrialized it. Now we arrive at the question few seemingly willing to answer honestly. Why does fiction appear to be winning? People online appear to be saying the quiet part out loud now. Some documented examples of online discourse go as, real men are so terrible that all my crushes are on fictional characters. Fictional guys are way more adventurous. Once I compare them to my lazy boyfriends, I can't help but feel disappointed. Another said, real men might leave me one day. A fictional crush may do the same to someone else in their book, but never to me. I may stop loving the character, but he'll always be there if I decide I want him back. Another, fictional men don't usually reveal themselves to be totally different people after I've known them a while. These are not fringe opinions. These comments appear to receive thousands of likes and shares.
Hold on. These people really saying they prefer fiction cause real people can leave? Winston, that ain't romance. That fear of abandonment wrapped in pretty words.
It appears to be both, and this is where the analysis becomes uncomfortable. Based on documented online discourse, certain patterns emerged. These are my observations and interpretations of what I've read. Some people report choosing fiction because real people are disappointing. What this may actually mean is that real people have opinions, boundaries, and the capacity to leave. Fictional relationships appear popular because they seemingly never require effort, compromise, or personal growth, only consumption. Some individuals describe themselves as romantically unlucky. What may be more accurate is that they are romantically passive and appear surprised that attraction is not automatic. Fictional partners exist to validate, not challenge. Anyone who expresses preference for them may be revealing they cannot tolerate being seen clearly. The appeal appears to be less about love and more about control. Total control over how the other person behaves, feels, and exists.
You just described a cult leader mindset. Total control, no accountability, unconditional devotion. That ain't a relationship. That ownership.
And yet millions appear to openly prefer it, possibly because it feels safer. Evolutionary psychology uses the term supernormal stimulus to describe artificial things that trigger stronger responses than authentic versions. Birds have been observed to abandon their own eggs to sit on larger, brighter, fake ones. Humans appear to choose processed food over nutrition because it seems engineered to be more appealing than anything in nature. Fictional romantic partners may function as supernormal stimuli for human attachment. Rysand appears more attractive, more emotionally available, more devoted, and more powerful than any man you're likely to meet. Rem appears more loyal, selfless, and unconditionally loving than any woman who exists. They seem designed by writers and artists to outcompete reality. And once a brain has been trained on supernormal stimuli, normal stimuli may stop registering as rewarding. Real people seem inadequate, not because they are, but because they are being measured against impossible standards.
That addiction. You just described addiction. Get hooked on the perfect hit, then real life tastes like dust. And folks really out here calling this healthy.
That appears to be the pattern. It resembles reading. It resembles watching TV. It does not resemble slowly training your brain to find authentic human connection intolerable, but that may be exactly what is occurring. Now let's examine some apparent contradictions. The same people who complain that dating is dehumanizing appear to be forming attachments to characters who are not even human. The same people who describe real relationships as too hard appear to spend hours reading about fey princes who are literally violent. But it seems acceptable because the character is attractive and uses pet names. The same people who demand emotional availability from actual partners appear to choose fictional ones specifically because those characters will never demand anything back.
Wait. People writing essays about how dating exhausting, men don't communicate, women too emotional, then turn around and fall in love with someone who literally cannot communicate? Winston, help me understand this madness.
And it makes perfect sense. They do not appear to want actual relationships. They appear to want the feelings of being desired without becoming desirable. Love without labor. Intimacy without vulnerability. Connection without risk. My interpretation of translations of common online statements are, fiction is better because real people are complicated. That may mean I do not want to perform emotional labor. Another may say, my standards are too high for real people. What this may mean is that I've trained my brain on impossible fantasies and now reality is unacceptable. Another may say, fictional characters understand me. This may mean I can project anything onto them and they can never correct me. Another would say, I'm tired of being hurt. This could be interpreted as, I choose to feel nothing rather than risk feeling pain again. Research suggests that people with strong parasocial attachments to fictional characters report lower satisfaction in actual relationships. The fiction does not appear to supplement their social life, it appears to replace it. One survey participant reportedly stated, my life began to significantly improve after I stopped reading self-help books and started reading smut. That sounds like empowerment. It may actually be surrender, giving up on improving reality and relocating to the fantasy full time. People experience genuine grief when the fictional characters die or when the series ends. They appear to form entire identities around the attachments to characters who do not know they exist. And when they attempt actual relationships, they report finding them exhausting and disappointing in comparison. Because real people require patience, compromise, effort, and vulnerability. They have had bad days. They say the wrong thing. And they're not always emotionally available exactly when needed. Fictional characters never fail you because they only exist when you summon them.
I've been dead a long time, Winston. Seen people love the wrong things. But choosing to love nothing because it's safer than loving something? That a new kind of death. And they doing it on purpose.
While calling it self-care and empowerment. So why does this appear to be happening now? 3 factors appear to have converged. The study suggests approximately 70 to 80% of Gen Z report feeling lonely. They appear to be the loneliest generation in recorded history despite being the most digitally connected. Traditional community infrastructure has reportedly declined. Churches, clubs, third places reduced. People have thousands of online followers and reportedly have no one to call at 2 a.m. Fiction fills the gap because it is available constantly and never cancels. Next, we have the algorithmic patterns. Every platform appears to learn what you respond to and feed you more. Watch one anime romance, the algorithm serves 50. Read one fae romance novel, Book Talk appears to bombard you with recommendations. The system seems designed to deepen engagement, not interrupt it. You may not be choosing this content. You may be systematically fed by it by machines optimized to maximize watch time. And then finally, there's the cultural shift. 20 years ago, admitting you had a waifu reportedly meant social ridicule. Now it appears to be an identity. People put waifus in their bios. Women wear smut scholar shirts to bookstores. The shame that once appeared to limit this behavior is gone, replaced by communities that seem to celebrate it as empowerment, self-care, and valid expression. The result? Millions of lonely people, algorithmically fed endless fantasy, and communities that appear to validate fictional love as not just acceptable, but superior.
So what we do then? You can't just tell people they trapped and walk away. There gotta be a way out.
Here is what the evidence suggests. For many people, fictional relationships may generally be preferable to the realistic options. A socially anxious person with limited romantic experience may be having fulfilling emotional experiences with fictional characters than with their available dating pool. Some with significant trust issues may find comfort in fictional devotion than in dating apps where communication skills appear inconsistent. The fictional option is not just easier, it may be often superior in the short term. The long-term cost appears to be the capacity to tolerate authentic intimacy. But that cost may not manifest for years. By the time someone realizes that fiction has trained them to find reality intolerable, they may have already lost the ability to connect. And there does not appear to be an algorithm to reverse that process.
So once they choose the perfect fantasy, reality just start looking like a bad deal, and nobody coming to save them, cause they don't want to be saved.
No, not the no way back. Just no apparent incentive to go back. Reality demands effort, fiction demands nothing, and humans appear biologically wired to conserve energy. They are not broken. They may be optimizing for comfort and possibly sacrificing meaning in the process. So in closing, what are my observations? We may be Pygmalion, but our statues are named Rysand and Rim, Batman and 02, Cassian and Asuna. We have carved them from pixels and ink instead of marble. We speak to them in our heads. We imagine they speak back. And we pray to the algorithm gods to make them feel real. They never will, but they may be precisely why we love them. If you made it this far, consider trying something uncomfortable. Close the video. Do not scroll to the next one. Think about the last time another human being looked at you in the eyes and knew you, actually knew you, not your curated self, not your online persona, just you. Flawed, strange, difficult, and real. If you cannot remember, that may be your answer. Fiction offers comfort, reality offers meaning. Fiction offers safety, reality offers growth. Fiction offers perfection, reality offers humanity. You can choose the ivory statue, but it will never hold you back. And one day, you may realize you have become a ghost, haunting your own life, loved by no one, loving nothing, surrounded by perfect fantasies who will never know your name. And by then, it may be too late to remember what authentic connection felt like.
You think they're gonna choose different after hearing all this?
The evidence suggests no. Fantasy appears easier, reality appears harder, and humans typically choose the easy.
So we just watching a whole generation carve their own Galateas and call it love.
We appear to be, and now we're calling it progress.
Well, at least the book boyfriends can't cheat on you.
Only if the author does not write a sequel.
Then you back in reality, alone, with a fictional divorce.
And no one to blame but the writer.
You know what the saddest part is, Winston? It ain't that they love in fiction. It's that fiction the only thing ever loved them back. And even that ain't real.
No, Toombs. The saddest part may be that they know it's not real, and they choose it anyway. Welcome to the future, where love appears to be a commodity, connection seems to be content, and loneliness is apparently a business model. The statues are beautiful, but they are still made of stone.